Good day, I'm David Powles, Digital Editor for EDP24, and welcome to our latest 10-minute news podcast. Today we are going to discuss an issue that has been burning away, and you'll see what I've done there in a second, for several years, Norfolk's Incinerator proposal. Joining me is Dan Grimmer, Public Affairs Correspondent and the man tasked with reporting the various twists and turns in this saga. Hello Dan.
Hello Dave.
We only have 10 minutes, so let's crack on. Dan, what's the latest on this issue?
Right, well we could finally see an end to this saga which has been going on all my life. Basically on Monday the county council that is going to be asked to scrap the incinerator at King's Lynn. They're going to have a vote and they may well decide to terminate the contract, which will bring an end to this saga.
Right, well, before we discuss Monday's meeting, let's go back in time for a moment, Dan. You were a reporter in Norwich when this plan was first mooted at Cossey, and at the time that sparked mass protests and eventually the contract there was cancelled in 2006. Did you think then that it would still be on the agenda some 8 years later?
Well, it really did get people's backs up when they wanted to build it at Cossey. There was a very well organised campaign against it, and I was amazed after that all fell through that they tried again to do it in King's Lynn. I couldn't believe that they'd made that decision, and I think they're regretting that now.
Why though? Why has Norfolk County Council continued to push the idea? There must be other solutions out there.
Well, this is one of the big controversies with this. When they looked at doing it in King's Lynn, they looked again at incineration, and a lot of people were saying, why? Why don't you look at other alternatives? And there's a school of thought that the reason they went with incineration was because they knew the government was likely to give them some what called waste credits to build it, which is basically money to bankroll it. So some people see them as having chased the incinerator to get that money.
But obviously the government in the end pulled out of those waste
eventually.
Credits. Do you think that, looking back on it, was the moment that the tide turned?
That was the mortal blow. If they do axe it on Monday, that and the delay in the decision by Eric Pickles on planning, that's what has done for it.
Okay, and I mean, if for people who really haven't followed it,
shame on them. Shame on them.
I can't believe there'd be any of those out there. But why has it proved so controversial? What's at the heart of it? Is it safety? Is it just people don't want such an unwieldy factory near where they live?
Well, it's become a number of things. Part of it is safety. Some people do believe that these incinerators, the emissions from them aren't safe. The government and the incinerator companies, needless to say, argue that they are. But I think to a great degree now, the incinerator's gone beyond that. It's become a case where people don't like it because the council say they should have it. And they don't trust the council to have done what's right for
Well, it's been interesting because, from following it day to day, the government has talked a lot about localism, and this has become a classic example where localism there's still a long way to go before there's proof that localism really is happening, because no one in King's Lynn wanted this, did they? Yet the Norfolk County Council, until now, continued to push ahead with it.
Yeah, well, 65,000 people in the poll organised by West Norfolk Council said they didn't want it. So, yeah, clearly there's a great number of people that didn't want it. And the big irony here is that Eric Pickles is kind of the champion of localism, and it's been his kind of decision as to whether this goes ahead. And there are some people that don't think it's coincidence that he's delayed it.
Interesting. But over in Suffolk, and we know that Suffolk have come forward where they've got an incinerator to say, send your rubbish here, which, let's send our rubbish over to near Ipswich. I don't mind that at all. That the incinerator there passed without any great scandal at all. What's been the difference?
Well, that's at Great Blakenham, and that's going to be up and running later this summer. And I asked my colleague Paul Geeter over on the East Anglian Daily Times and Ipswich Evening Star why he thinks that got through. And what he told me was that, one, there was a great huge cement works there anyway, which shut down and cost a lot of people their jobs. So they thought, right, well, we'll have an incinerator and we'll get work there. Secondly, it's near a big landfill site that apparently is a little bit smelly anyway, so people weren't that bothered. And also there was the Snowasis scheme that was going on at that time as well, which everyone was up against. And basically what Paul said to me is they were so busy fighting Snowasis that the incinerator was the lesser of two evils, and it was kind of well, let's just let that happen if we can stop Snoasis.
And do you think Norfolk County Council felt that the same thing would happen in King's Lynn? Do you think they were surprised by the reaction?
I don't know if they were surprised. I think initially they thought that the Borough Council and the MPs out there were on board. I think the council thought they would be fine with it. It's difficult to judge whether the MP, Henry Bellingham, and the Borough Council later decided they were against it or not, but there was certainly a groundswell that built up, and there's no doubt that has played a key factor in stopping it.
Yeah, that's right. So what do we? And a lot of these campaigners, they'll come across on Monday, obviously with their placards, and really, make sure that everyone is aware of the strength of feeling over in King's Lynn. What's going to happen on Monday? Just talk us through how this decision is going to be made either way.
Yeah, what it is, there's a meeting of the full county council that starts at 10 o'clock, and the officers will recommend that they ditch the incinerator, basically, that they cancel the contract. They'll have a vote. Last time they had a vote, it was 40 to keep it, 38 not to keep it. This time, I think they'll axe it because the tide has changed. The cabinet themselves will now vote to ditch it, I'm pretty certain. So it just remains to be seen who's there. If people are on holiday, if the Conservatives vote not to reject the contract, who knows? But I'd be surprised if anything other than cancellation happens, because ultimately it'll be the cabinet that decides, not the council. There's a cabinet meeting straight after the council meeting, and they can just decide to scrap it whatever happens.
So, yeah, and that's another debate, the way that our Norfolk County Council is structured, but we'll save that for another day. So do you think, so that said then, you think it's very unlikely that we'll see a shock here? I guess, a shock go back the last 6-7 years would have been to scrap the incinerator. Now it's the tide has turned, like you say. A shock would be for them to say, actually we've changed our mind, we are going to keep it now. Any chance?
There's always a chance. Like I say, if people don't turn up, if people abstain, but I'd now be amazed if anything other than cancellation happens on Monday.
Okay. And who do you think, when we look back on this whole saga, and that may be this time next week that's happened, who's going to come out back poorly in this? Are there any winners in this? You'd say the people of King's Lynn, I guess, and democracy maybe? Well,
difficult to judge really. The taxpayer will come out worse because we'll have to be footing the bill for the compensation, but the campaigners would argue we'd have been footing the bill for this massive incinerator in any case, so perhaps that is a win for them. I don't think it's a big victory for democracy, hand on heart.
Because it's taken so long? Or?
Well, partly that, but also I think it's damaged the reputation of the county council. I think people don't trust them now, rightly or wrongly. I think they think there's been secrecy. They think decisions have been made just by a group of councillors, and I think it's going to take a while for the county to recover from this, because you've had council against council, you've had MP against council leaders. It's not been good for anyone.
It's been it has been pretty poor show. But the story doesn't really stop on Monday, though, of course, because if it is scrapped, then there's the matter of £30 million, which has to be found from somewhere, doesn't it?
Yep. The council have said, they've built up what they sort of term a war chest. So they've got 19 million that they've got built up. Another 11 million will have to be found. And whether services will be cut or whether that will be found from underspends, I think remains to be seen. But obviously that money's got to be paid. And the other thing is they've still got to find a solution to this waste problem. There's still going to be rubbish produced, and they don't know how they're going to deal with it. We're kind of back to where we were when the Cossey contract was scrapped. And, that was it's been going on for 9 years, and we're still no nearer really finding a solution.
And you don't think it's likely that come a week Monday, we've got the solution, an incinerator somewhere else in Norfolk?
I don't think they'll be saying that quite yet. I doubt anyone will rule it out, but I think they'd be very, very foolish to launch another one on us quite so soon.
Well, as George Nobbs, council leader himself, said, why we wouldn't jump back in the fire just after jumping out of it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan. That's been very interesting. Enjoy yourself on Monday.
I will.
If that's the right word. And And finally, to people out there, make sure that you log on to EDP24 on Monday for live coverage of the debate. And of course, Tuesday's EDP will be jam-packed with Incinerator coverage, special reports, analysis, everything you need to know, basically. Thanks for listening.